2 years ago, I didn't even know what a fund was. I set a goal of 1,000 houses, 5 years, or 200 houses a year. He goes as far as he will not rent to Android phone users because he's found out historically over acquiring 800 plus doors, Android users are worse tenants. A huge misconception on that part is most Section 8 voucher holders are middle-aged white people. If you don't screen them well, they will...
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, folks, I got a real treat for you. Stephen J. Reel is in the house. What's cracking, Stephen?
Not much, Brad. How you doing today?
I like the real part. It's not spelled right, though. It's R-E-E-L.
Right, but you got to reel them in. That's how I am.
Folks, you can follow this dude at Stephen_J_Reel on Instagram. You might be interested in maybe even doing some investing. But first, let me tell you who he is, what he does. Apparently, he's a Section 8 investor.
Section 8.
Get up on that microphone close as you. Boom. There you go. We want to hear you. Section 8, dude. Why Section 8?
Security, government backed. So
you're the second one now that I've heard doing Section 8 only.
Right.
But why Section 8?
The main benefit of Section 8 is its security. It's government backed. So for a major example is during COVID, a lot of people went into forbearance. Landlords were losing their houses and things like that. Section 8 didn't fall off at all. All the rent checks still showed up because they were from the government. People missing work, all of that stuff, it didn't affect it at all.
So you got 100% of your rent paid.
100% of the rent. Yeah.
But don't you have to deal with the Section 8 type of people that, vandalize and do garbage? That's what most people think.
And so that is a problem, but that all goes into the vetting process of it, right? So as long as you're doing your job as a landlord or whoever your property manager is doing the proper job of screening the tenant and making sure that the tenant is vetted, essentially. I mean, we'll go as far as going out and looking in their car when they show up or showing up at their house unannounced, being like, hey, we know we don't have a scheduled appointment. Do you mind if we come in and do a walkthrough? Some people say yes, some people say no, but it's those little things through screening that really separates that out. And then after that, it's just follow-up, making sure you're walking through your properties every 60 days, find a reason. Air filters need change, smoke detector batteries need check, different things like that.
Well, not only that, but you would think that they don't want to get kicked off Section 8 program.
Exactly.
So you believe it or so people are probably a little more likely not to screw shit up.
Right. And when you do have a problem tenant, the easiest thing to do is go right back to the housing authority being like, hey, 123 Apple Street ain't cutting it. They're dirty. They're not cutting the grass. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. And the housing authority will give them a call. And now all of a sudden they run the risk of losing a voucher. And those vouchers, unless it gets changed coming up, which it's possible, I don't think it will, unless those vouchers get changed, you're on it for life. Like you don't lose your voucher. They can be handed down in some instances.
Handed down?
Yeah. So there's instances where you can pass your voucher along to other people. Some people have that process.
Well, hopefully Doge is putting a stop to that.
There's potentially going to be a stop to that.
Well, they should. You shouldn't be able to pass it down. Everyone, listen, I'm big on helping people.
Yeah.
Especially if they actually need help, which is why when people always say, well, Section 8 housing, there's a lower level of people in there. Just because someone doesn't have money doesn't make them lower level of people. It may mean that they're having difficult times or went through difficult times. They're good people. They just don't have much money.
Right. And a huge misconception on that part is most Section 8 voucher holders are middle-aged white people that either A, have a disability.
Is that a fact?
Yeah. Most Section 8, the majority of Section 8 people are middle-aged white people.
Yeah. So how about that? You damn classist. I always call them classist. Everyone that thinks that people that have no money means that they're lowlifes.
Right. That ain't true.
Well, I grew up with no money and I wasn't a lowlife.
Right. I grew up with no money too.
And a lot of my friends didn't have money and they weren't lowlifes.
Right.
It doesn't make you a lowlife because you don't have money.
Right.
But a lot of people think that.
They do.
Why do you, and like, how do you reconcile vetting people when they don't have money?
Again, just the process. You look at the person and not the situation generally, right? So everybody can be in a bad situation just because they're in a bad situation. They made a mistake or they did something like that. But through the vetting process, you can really learn who a person is. It's the same with anything. Like when you interview people to come work for you at Lightspeed or anywhere else, like you learn a lot about a person going through that vetting process.
Yeah.
And it's the same type of thing for any type of landlord or tenant. It just depends on how much due diligence you want to do and how much effort you want to put in, or do you just want to lease somebody up and start collecting a check? Because that's when you run into problems.
Okay, so let's figure out for the listeners, if they want to get into Section 8 housing, there's guys out there right now listening going, man, maybe I ought to try this. What's the first steps to getting into Section 8 housing?
The first step to getting into Section 8 housing is in identifying your market. So everything's off the fair market rents. Some counties are higher, some counties are lower. We're starting in St. Louis just because the barrier to entry is low compared to the rent rates. So you can get into, say, a 2-bedroom house for $70,000 that's paying you $1,100, $1,200 a month. And so it all boils down to your barrier to entry and where you're at to maximize your cash flow and your cash on cash.
With interest rates the way they are, how much is a payment on a $70,000 house with, say, 20% down?
So we're doing no debt service. So we're buying everything cash. I'm not sure what the interest rates would affect payments at right now because we buy everything cash.
Ah.
Yeah.
Ah, that's even better.
It is, yeah, because it maximizes your cash flow. It's all.
But I wonder what someone without cash or a lot of it is able to do, because you can still buy one. You just go get a loan.
Oh, absolutely. And in that scenario, a lot of people start out just searching out owner finance. There's a lot of tired landlords out there that'll take $5,000 down and they'll owner finance the house to you. And so you can get into a $70,000, $50,000 house that way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do the math for them because a lot of people don't understand the basic principles where they're like, I don't have $70,000.
Right.
Well, I can't make that payment. Well, if you borrow $70,000 on a house for 30 years, your payment's chump change.
Right.
And the rent covers it.
Right.
And then some.
It does.
So the whole point is to make, I would say what, 50%?
At least 50%. Our target minimum, when I first started looking into it, was $600 a month cash flow. And that was after all of the expenses came out. We put warranties on all the houses that cover all the appliances, things like that. You can go to 210 home warranty. It's $57 a month. Covers the refrigerator, the water heater, washer dryer, different things like that. And then that coupled with your warranty. But I mean, if you just do the simple math of, even 10% down is $7,000. So what, $14,000 if you had to throw 20% down on a house, you'd be throwing $14,000 down. You can go do a DSCR loan with a lot of people like that. So you don't even necessarily have to go to banks. You can go to private lenders as well.
And get your money back within a year.
The
rest is all gravy.
Right.
Not to mention equity. But what about like damage? Do you get a lot of it or no?
Yeah, so that's one thing about Section 8 tenants. If you don't screen them well, they will tear up your property. And so it's again, like I was saying before, screening them, looking in their cars, really vetting them. And the guy, Tom Cruise, that I learned Section 8 from, who's got a course out there, Section 8 Pro.
Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise, yeah, that's his name. Not spelled the same, no. He's an interesting cat. But he goes as far as he will not rent to Android phone users because he's found out historically over acquiring 800 plus doors, Android users are worse tenants. So he only rents to iPhone users.
Android users are worse tenants.
Yeah.
Has he documented that, or is that just some sort of bias?
No, he claims he's documented it through his course of 10 years of Section 8 rentals. Android users are by far worse tenants.
Interesting.
Right.
Well, clearly they're dumber.
Right, because they don't use iPhones. Like, who doesn't want an iMessage? You have to come up with some FCC rule saying Apple has a monopoly.
Who wants the green bubbles?
Right.
So what'd you do before this?
I was a helicopter pilot.
And you attended a seminar or a workshop or some sort of course you bought?
Well, I did buy a couple of courses. You can find it in my resource section. Like I bought Sub 2, and I was in a couple.
Old Pace Morbies?
Old Pace Morbies, yeah.
Why didn't you stick with that?
So while I was in flight school getting all my FAA certificates, I worked for American Express as a debt collector. And I would spend 11 hours a day on the phone calling debtors. And I found personally, which there's great money in it. If anybody wants to wholesale, do creative financing, whatever, it's a great industry. You can make tons of money doing it. But the grind of spending 8-9 hours on a phone all day long, every day, it just reminded me of the whole debt collection thing. And it just wasn't my jam.
Is that what it's all about? You just got to call and call and call and call and call and
That's
find
what it's
someone?
all about. It's all cold calling. You're either cold calling sellers directly, which is DTS, direct to seller, or you're cold calling agents, direct to agent, which is all on market stuff. And the ratio is like 1 to 2 deals per 100 calls. And that shit's for the birds, man. Like after what people make money doing it, don't get me wrong. And the longer you do it, the better you get at it. And that ratio drops. But it was just painful for me because I spent years working as a debt collector at American Express doing collections all day long, just pounding the phones. And so then I started doing some research into other areas. That's when I found the Section 8 thing. And then I got turned on to the fund launch program and decided I'm starting a fund and rolling that way with it. So
who turned you on to the fund launch program?
Actually, a lady, I'm in another program with a guy named Jerry Norton, who basically started wholesaling. He's like the godfather of wholesaling, they call him. And he did a YouTube series with this lady, Vina Jetty. And she's got like a $500 million fund, like 534 million under management and all multifamily stuff. And I watched that. It was one day. I was cold calling and I just got tired of it, went and had some lunch, and I kicked on YouTube when my food was digesting, and I see this podcast series pop up. And it was just interesting to me that you could do this little bit of front loading work and then just start making calls and collecting $1 million checks versus $10,000 assignments. And I was like, that's the jam. That's what I need to do.
Well, that sounds a little too good to be true. Explain.
It does sound too good to be true, right? Just like everything in life. But it's really not that hard. Like there's a lot of front loading work to it. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff that you have to learn as far as regulations. So we're a Reg D 506C fund. That's one thing that I didn't know, but that's just how it breaks down in the SEC code book, right? And so once you get all of that figured out and what type of fund you want to be, who your target investor is going to be as far as your avatar and things like that, and then it just goes from there to literally calling family offices, calling other people like that, and looking for private money to invest into your fund. And then you take that money and you go out and you buy your houses or whatever else it is. It doesn't have to be real estate. It can be hedge funds. It can be private equity. There's people that do hospitality funds. There's all kinds of different funds out there that you can do.
What would you say to someone listening that says, dude, I can't start a fund though. I don't have a degree. I'm not, how can I start a fund? Tell someone how they can start their own fund.
Go to my website, kvrinvestors.com, go to the resource section, click on fund launch, step-by-step guide. It's exactly what I did. You sign up for the program and it's literally a step-by-step hand-holding guide on how to launch any type of fund you want.
And it works?
It works. Absolutely. Yep.
And there's no catch? You got to have
the catch is you have to do the work. Yeah.
How much work's involved?
A lot. It's a lot. It's just
give me some example.
Though.
Walk me through it.
Well, the first part is, it's first step is your thesis. So coming up with a thesis. Our thesis is pretty simple. There's a lack of affordable housing in America. Solution to that is providing more affordable housing. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to partner with passive investors. Our target investor is somebody that has like a self-directed retirement account or something like that. So that's step one, is identifying your thesis. What do you want to do? What's the problem? What's the solution? And how are you going to solve it? And then step two is framing it out. And you go through all the different financial structure of that, like, can I actually make money with this? And it's step-by-step coaching through that. And you have coaches that you can schedule calls with, plenty of spreadsheets for people that don't have it. I ended up hiring just a financial guy to map it all out for me, to just make it simpler. And then from there, you do essentially mock capital raising. So you start going to people, high net worth people like yourself or other family offices, things like that. Say, hey, you got 5 minutes? You want to take a look at this? Poke some holes in it for me. And then you get the feedback from there. And then from that point, once all the holes and everything are poked in it, you've corrected all that, then you go and you file your legal paperwork and you're on your road.
That's it.
Where
do you find investors?
There's a lot of different people. So like I said, our target investor is someone that has a self-directed retirement account. And perfect example, this 2,500 point hit the stock market just took. If all those people would have been directed into my fund and they would have been investing in Section 8 houses, their portfolios wouldn't have flinched. But because they were in the markets, there's no telling how much money some of those people lost.
So you could say Section 8 is damn near recession proof.
It is. Section 8 is by far one of the most stable asset classes you can invest in if you do it right. And until the federal government collapses, those checks are just going to keep coming. Who wants to be the president that kicks out millions of people?
Now, can you make that claim without having a securities license?
What claim?
That it's the best investment?
For me?
Whatever you just said?
Well, yeah, I can make the claim. Yeah. Because I'm not asking people to, I'm not selling nothing with that, right? So I'm just claiming for me, Section 8 is one of the best asset classes it can be. And you don't even have to have a fund to do Section 8. There's a lot of people out there that just go buy doors, whether it be because they have some cash stacked up or they go to friends and family or they get loans or whatever it is. So you don't have to have a fund to invest in Section 8. You can just go start buying houses on your own.
Well, I'm just running through all the things I think people might be thinking like, dude, I want to start a fund. Dude, I want to get into Section 8 and then giving them some value on how to do it.
Right.
So if I want to start a fund, I go to, what is the website?
KVRinvestors.com.
Like Killer Virtual Investors, KVR,
Kilo Victor Romeo Investors.com.
Investors, Kilo Victor Romeo Investors.com.
Yep.
And then go to the resources tab.
Yep. And it's one of the first links at the top, Fund Launch Black Card. And you can sign up for that. Just fill out the form. It's just a referral form is all it is. And you'll get a call from somebody and they'll kind of ask you what you're interested in and they'll shoot you straight. Like, yeah, that's a good idea. No, that's a crap idea. And you just take it from there.
See, so people, that hear this, there's an opportunity sitting right there. They just sometimes think, I can't start a fund because I've thought that a million times. Like, what do I know? I don't have legal departments and I'm not going to get violations from the SEC and I'm not, qualified.
Right. And that's the thing that most people do is you brought up legal departments. Most people just go out and they find an SEC attorney or a securities attorney. They take their idea to them and have them write up the docs. And then they go back to step 3 and they'll be like, oh, hey, Brad, I got this fund. You want to check it out and see if it's something you might be interested in investing in. You poke all kinds of holes in it. Now they got to go back to their attorney, redraft their PPM, and it just costs more money. So that's another reason to go to Fund Launch is because you do all that work at the end as far as legal. You go through the whole process. You make sure you have a solid plan, and then you take it to essentially private investors and other people that would invest in it potentially, ask them to poke holes in it. And once you get through that process, then you do your legal. Legal is always the last thing that you should do.
So the PPM's a private placement memorandum.
Yes, sir.
Explain what that is for some of the greenies out there.
That's just your operating agreement. Essentially, it's just your documentations to say what the fund does, what it invests in, how investors are going to get paid back, and when they're going to get paid back. It's basically the fund Bible. Is
it your choice, your decision to make those terms, or are there guidelines?
No, you can write up any type of PPM you want. You might not get somebody to invest in it if it's not favorable to your investor, but your PPM is what it is. You write it up.
So how do you know what percentages to put so you don't overpromise and underdeliver?
That goes back to step 2, where you frame it out through your financial framework. You have basically a financial analyst go through it, figure out, say like one of our buckets is a 2-bedroom. We'll spend up to $90,000 on it, depending on the zip code, because each zip code is different. And on the cash flow, we're going to get back. So you model that out. How many can we buy in the zip code with this much money, what the return is going to be. And then that's what you put in your PPM.
And all based on projections.
All based on projections.
And assumptions.
Yes.
So what are the blind spots?
There are a few blind spots. You have bad tenants, obviously. And in our fund, what we're going to do is after an 18 to 24 month hold, then we are going to refi them at that point to capture that equity. And then we're going to reinvest that right back into the fund. So that could be a blind spot, right? When you get there, are we going to be able to refi? Where's the economy going to be at? So that has to be written into the PPM as well, is, hey, when we get to refi, if interest rates are crazy and we're not going to meet, like I said, minimum $600 a month cash flow, then we're not refiing. And different things like that. So that's something that you also should join Fund Launch for, because these coaches that you go through, a lot of these people are in real estate and they help you think of those blind spots because they've already been there. They'll be like, oh, hey, what about this? Or what about that? Or warranty type stuff. People don't think about stuff like that. Like we were chatting at lunch. Like I said, water and sewer, right? A lot of people don't realize that that's something that can get you liened. Like you can lose your house for that. So that's something that we always pay. With Section 8, you have to anyway, but a lot of people don't even think about about that with private rentals. They'll leave it on their tenant to pay, but if the tenant don't pay it, now you're in a situation where you're paying thousands of dollars for back water and sewer bills and things like that.
So is raising money easier than it sounds?
No, raising money is hard. But it's like with anything, right? Like it's a learning curve. And so once you start raising money, the first one's always the hardest. It's like a pretty girl, right? Once you get one pretty girl, you realize you can get them all if you really want to. And raising money isn't any different. It's basically just developing your pitch, developing your flow, and making sure that you have a solid thesis and that you can actually give your investor back what you're telling them you're going to give them back within the time frame that you're guaranteeing it.
What do you think the average return is for people to pull a trigger?
The average, 12% is the low end. Our target's 13% minimum return at an IRR level or a fund level like that. But there's deal level returns, there's fund level returns, there's different types of returns. But our target return is 13% and then up from there.
Is there any minimums?
No, there's not.
So I could invest with you claiming I'm going to get 13, and obviously something didn't work out, and now I don't.
That would be one of the risks. But
that's just me as an accredited investor. I should have known that there was risks.
Agreed, and that's something with it as well. That depending on the fund structure that you do, like I said, we're a 506c. All of our investors have to be accredited, so you know the risk.
So when you say passive, it's because they don't want to go out and find these things and manage these things and do these things. They'd rather just throw you the money and just get a return.
Exactly.
And do they have any other responsibilities other than that?
None.
Huh.
Nope.
So are you looking for investors?
We are. Yeah. Well, we're looking for people that are interested in investing, that are interested in learning more in the space, essentially.
But if Bomb Squad listeners are like, dude, I'd like 13%, they should reach out?
Yeah, they can go to KVR Investors. There's a form on there that they can fill out, and they can do just basic information type stuff and then submit it to us and let us know what their interest might be. And if it fits with our PPM, we'd probably get back to them.
What if it doesn't?
Then it doesn't fit, and there's no point.
Why don't you just open, if you got enough demand, why wouldn't you just find another model?
Because what do you mean find another model as far
like, let's say you go to raise money for your PPM and you get 20% that are in, but 80% weren't in because they were looking for something else or this wasn't good enough. Can you ever switch them? Because to me, raising money is the hard part. Buying the properties is the easy part.
Right. Well, they come with their own challenges. You could edit your PPM, but once you're actually into it and you have investors, and so say you have, for example, 10 investors, and you find out that this PPM doesn't suit the next 50 investors. For one, you didn't do your homework right in step 3, but also at the same time, you have to go back to your other investors and say, hey, I need to edit this and change that. Are you okay with it? Because everybody has to agree or nobody agrees type thing.
Yeah, once I've invested, that's it.
Once you've invested, that's it. Yeah.
So who controls the money?
Me, the fund manager.
So your ass is on the line then.
Essentially, yeah.
So aren't you worried about violating or not not performing?
No.
Why not?
Because I did my homework and I followed the steps. Yeah.
You think it's that foolproof?
It is, yeah. I mean, there's obviously the risk. There's things that come up and down, but as long as you create your box and you stay inside that box and you follow your projections, then that's what it is.
How big of a team do you have?
Well, you have the market expert, which is the real estate guy. You have me as the fund manager. We have capital raisers. We have an acquisitions team. We have a property management team. So it takes quite a bit of people.
The property managers, that's a company in and of itself.
It is, yeah.
So would you manage other people's properties?
No, all in-house stuff. And the main reason for that is to be a property manager, other than for a private in-house property manager, you have to be licensed to manage other people's properties. But if they work for the company and they're in-house and they're only managing our in-house properties, it gets rid of a lot of that regulation. And they're on the payroll. And so that works from that angle.
So how do you go from a helicopter pilot to this? You were bored, you were eating lunch, you saw a video, you tracked it down, and the next thing you know, you're in Section 8.
Yeah, so actually it's kind of a wild story, but I flew for a little over a decade and I just got tired of traveling. And right about the same time, my mom passed away and I inherited her house. And it was about 8 hours away from me. And so I had to travel. It was a fix and flip, and I didn't even realize it was a fix and flip at the time. But I netted quite a bit of money on it. And I was like, damn, there's a lot of money in this real estate game. And I was already tired of traveling and flying. And so that's when I ended up getting into like Sub 2 and a couple other courses like that, and really started learning about real estate, trying to build some wealth with it. And through that process, I ended up finding Section 8.
Was this all out of Montana or Boston?
All out of Montana.
So you're out in the middle of nowhere, the sticks, basically.
Basically.
And
yeah.
you pulled all this off with a laptop and a cell phone? Laptop,
cell phone, and Wi-Fi. Yeah.
See, dude, nowadays you can succeed no matter where you are.
There's no excuse if you don't. It all boils down to you being lazy.
Yeah, because I always hear people say, yeah, but I live in a small town and I'm way out in the middle of nowhere and there's no opportunity out here.
Yeah.
Dude, you have a cell phone and a laptop and an internet connection?
Right.
Then
and
let's
there's wholesalers that live in small towns and they wholesale in Vegas. They live in friggin' Jackson, Mississippi. Like, you don't have to be there even to wholesale. Like, there's a lot of opportunity out there if you want to go out and do it. And there's ways to work around everything.
That's a fact. That's a bomb right there.
That's a bomb, buddy.
Most people want to find the reasons that can't work rather than figure out how to make it work.
Most people want to make excuses.
Yeah. So you grew up poor, you said.
I did, yeah. I actually lived on the streets from 16 to 19.
And now you're a fund manager.
Fund manager.
Did you ever think that was going to be the case?
2 years ago, I didn't even know what a fund was. 3 years ago, but yeah. No, I didn't think that was going to be the case. Once I started flying helicopters, I just figured that was something that I was going to do for the rest of my life.
What kind was it?
I started out flying Robinsons, little piston 4-seater aircraft, and then I moved into Bells and turbines. And when I finally quit flying, I was flying Blackhawks.
Blackhawks?
Blackhawks, buddy.
I thought that's military shit.
They're all ex-military aircraft, but you don't have to be a military member to fly them. Yeah, no, there's plenty of civilian Blackhawks flying around out there.
What makes it, you'd think those would be more sturdy than the average helicopter.
They are a little bit more sturdy, but they are also a lot more temperamental. They twitch, they roll faster. They're harder to fly. Yeah.
So do you enjoy like buying these properties, or do you enjoy building a portfolio?
I enjoy building a portfolio. I don't manage the acquisition team at all. That's not, again, that goes back to the phones. So I look at the deals as they come in and I make sure it fits the box. But as far as picking up the phones and pounding them, I only do that when I have to.
Do you ever go out to these properties and look at them, or is it all virtual?
All virtual.
So you don't even have to travel.
You don't have to do anything except for get pictures sent to you, and you're obviously going to get it inspected. And so you're going to get an inspector out there. They're going to send you pictures. They're going to send you a report. And a lot of the stuff's already on market anyway. So you have all the MLS listings and everything else like that.
Would you be interested in someone who wants to just do onesies, twosies with you?
What do you mean?
Like, in other words, they don't want to be in a fund, but they want to just go in partners. You find it, I'll fund it, and we'll split
definitely
it.
Private money partners. Absolutely, I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, because every time I hear about a fund, passive fund specifically, I always go, I don't know why, because I always feel like I need to learn what you're doing just in case.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Like, why am I giving you my money? And I guarantee you're not giving me all of it. You're probably not giving me a good chunk of it.
Well, for the first part of it, they get a good chunk. They get more than we do to begin with.
Well, but like collectively, I'm talking about like one person comes up with the 70 grand. He would get how much out of the profit would he get if he bought the whole house all by himself?
It would depend on,
because you guys don't do that. You fund to fund, and that fund is what owns the house.
Correct.
So if I gave you 70 grand and someone gave you 700 grand, they would just be getting 10 times the return. 10 times the portion than I am.
Right.
Now, who like owns the properties, the funds?
So we have a holding company. You have the fund, and then you have the holding and management company who owns it, and then that's how that breaks down.
Yeah. So what I'm confused about is, let's say I fund How much you raising, first of all?
110 million.
Okay. So again, 110 million could buy a shitload of those houses.
Right.
So how many of those do I own?
You have equity in each one of them. You don't
my
necessarily,
fraction of equity is in all of them.
Correct. Yeah.
So if I put in, for example, 2% of the fund I funded, I'd own 2% of 150 million.
Correct.
And then when those sell one at a time or otherwise, I get my money back and
your equity, and you get paid out your equity on top of that.
But what about like cost segregation and tax advantages? Do I get K1s that show loss and all the shit you guys are doing?
Yeah, your K1, it does break down like that. And that would actually be a question from my finance guy on how that actually breaks down. But you do get a K1, depreciation and all that stuff is included in there, but it's included at the fund level, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm just trying to like walk you into why someone would want to do the fund rather than just do it directly themselves.
Because a lot of people don't have the time nor the ability to do it themselves. They don't want to do it. And that goes back to our target investor, right? So our target investor is someone in corporate America that already has a retirement account, generally already tied to the stock market. And so when they redirect that, it's not like they're actually taking money out of their checking account. They're taking pre-invested money and just transferring it over to another vehicle for a different return, more stable return generally.
What do you think the difference would be?
In the return?
Yeah, like what's the average return on a current fund that's or a self-directed IRA, for example? How much am I getting on those?
I don't know. It depends on the IRA that you're in, I would think.
Well, yeah, but you have to have a number. Like I'm trying to get you to sell me into it.
Right.
Like let's say I'm getting 6% and you say I'll give you 13. We can usually double someone's average investment.
Right. So,
like, why don't you have your money in an IRA?
I don't do stock market stuff, man. No ETFs, no stock market. And actually, the reason that I don't do it was I saw a very close family member lose almost $500,000 during the whole Enron thing, and so ever since then, I've never done it. But I think the most self-directed funds are like that are about an 8% return, right? Somewhere in there.
No idea.
Yeah. And I think each one of them varies. But again, that would be a question that I would have to ask my finance guy.
What if your finance guy is incorrect and you're the fund manager? What's your liability?
As far as them being incorrect, as far as what the investment was before it got to us?
Yeah, because there's a lot of funds out there, and some of them aren't really the best funds in the world. They just sounded good when people invested. What makes yours better than the average?
What makes mine better than the average is the stability of it, the guaranteed income of it. And obviously, if somebody's already making 15% in whatever mutual fund or something like that they're in, they wouldn't transition over to a lower percentage. So the people that we're targeting are already at that lower percentage number. Yeah.
So what is your liability if I've invested, but it didn't hit? None?
None. It's written in the PPM.
See, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
So that's I think your uphill battle, because people are going to be like, dude, I like this guy. I might invest with him, but what if he's wrong? What's your track record? Like if you said, dude, I've been doing this for 38 years. I've made $290 billion. We got it down. That makes me feel a lot more comfortable than 2 years ago. You didn't know what a fund was.
Right.
Now you're going to manage one.
Right. So a lot of that comes out in the framing out of it, of making sure what assets we're going to buy, how much money we're going to spend on those assets, and what the cash flow is, and then the projected refi of that when we get to there. And a lot of that goes back to my market expert, Tom Cruise, already has 800 doors in counting. He's been doing it for 10 years. So he has that track record of where to buy, what to buy, when to buy, and how to manage.
Is he part of it?
He is, yeah, as a on speed dial coach and everything like that. So any Section 8 question or any housing question that I have that I don't have an immediate answer to, he's right there.
You seem like a dude that just believes in himself and whatnot. You were telling me earlier at 14, you were doing a little, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we could talk about it. It's part of the story.
Yeah. So small town in Montana.
Oregon. Actually. Oregon, Ontario.
Oregon.
Yeah.
And at 14 years old, what was you doing?
I was doing meth, actually. So yeah, I was in the early 90s, man. And I grew up around a bunch of one percenters, motorcycle club.
Sure.
And I was in homeroom one day, and this kid, Jason, man, he brought in this little Tic Tac container. And I'm a 14-year-old kid. He's got candy in a container. It's like what it seemed like at the time. Well, little did I know what it was. And I ended up trying it, and I was instantly hooked. I was a full-blown meth addict at the age of 15. Would stay up for weeks at a time. And I've never told that story before, especially public, man. Like, only my family knows that about me.
Maybe we should edit that out.
No, it's part of the story, man. I wouldn't be here where I'm at if it wasn't for me going through that. But it goes back.
Plus, I don't edit.
Yeah, that's fine. But that goes back to a lot of what you said about the self-assurance, right? That's where a lot of my self-assurance comes from, because I did go through that. I'm on the other side of that. And like, meth is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. There's grown adults our age that get hooked on it and it ruins their lives. So I overcame that as a teenager. And so I just look at it, there ain't anything I can't do.
What kind of lessons did you learn from it?
A lot, man. I learned a lot of lessons from it.
Did you have to go to rehab?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, rehab. The whole thing, man. Anything that you would expect a street kid to go through, I went through.
How old when you finally said enough's enough?
19.
And how old are you now?
44.
So it's been a long time.
Oh, it's been a long time.
So these are just some youngsters' mistakes.
Yeah.
So helicopter pilot to now fund manager, what is your goal?
My goal is to build up this portfolio all the way to 1,000 houses.
Why 1,000?
Because I want to have a $110 million fund. So that just takes out the average purchase price to where I want to get to create the cash flow that I wanted. So it's just basically figuring out what you want and working it backwards is what I did. But then get all the investors paid back and then just kick back and do something else and live off the cash flow from that.
So what kind of cash flow are you anticipating that generating for you?
It's going to be close to $6 million a month once it's all done, depending on all the house buckets that we get.
And why do you need that much?
I don't need it. It's just what I wanted.
Why'd you pick that number?
I don't know. It was just one day what I picked. And
you just said one day I'm gonna make $6 million a month.
No, the $6 million came afterwards. I picked 1,000 houses first. Is what I picked, and then from there, the math worked backwards.
How does 110 million make $6 million a month?
So it's the cash flow off of the rents that you get from it.
But that's not all net.
No, it's not all net. That would be gross. And then you have all your expenses and everything off of that.
Are you trying to net a certain amount? Because gross doesn't mean really anything. Are you trying to sell it, roll it up to like a REIT and dump it to BlackRock?
I just want the 1,000 houses to collect the cash flow off. I don't plan on, after I pay all the investors back and buy them out, I don't plan on selling anything.
So as that money just compounds, you just be giving it all back to the investor?
I'm just going to keep churning it back in, actually, and just keep buying more doors is what I'm going to do with it. I don't need all that money. Like, I can live pretty comfortably off a couple $100,000 a year, to be honest with you.
How likely do you think it'll happen in the next 10 years?
What's going to happen in 5?
In 5?
In 5.
Why 5?
Because that was the goal I set.
Just randomly?
No, so that went back actually to a lot of Tom's previous experience, and I just broke it down over. I want 1,000 houses. How long do I want to do this? And I set a goal of 1,000 houses, 5 years, or 200 houses a year.
So how many do you have now?
Right now, we have a few under management.
So how you better get started.
Right.
5 freaking years goes by pretty damn quick.
5 years hasn't started yet, though. So
when are you gonna start?
So that's when the capital call comes in. So once we get up to our first tranche, so we're not raising all 110 million and then it's go. We're doing it in tranches. So we're getting commitments up to 10 million. Then we're going to do that capital call, and then we're going to start buying those doors. Until then, it's more like you were already talking about, the private money partners and buying houses with people that way.
Have you found investors already?
A couple. Yeah.
Friends and family?
Yep.
So what makes you believe that you're able to actually do it? It sounds like this is still somewhat new.
It is somewhat new, but what makes me believe I can do it is, one, I'm very high in self-assurance, but people are already doing it. Like you had that other kid that was on here a few months ago or whatever. He's in his 20s. He's got 100 and something doors and counting.
But he's not raising funds, I don't think, is he?
Right. He did it the harder way. He went out and just started using his own cash, and he started doing it with private money in that aspect. And so that's the number one reason that I know it's achievable, because people are already doing it at a smaller scale on a harder path, if that makes sense.
Well, dude, what you're doing makes sense to me. It's just, it seems like it's almost like, damn, dude, if you pull this off, people are going to go, how the hell did he do that?
Right.
He just acted like it wasn't crazy.
That's the ones that succeed, though. It's all of us that do the crazy shit.
Yeah, because if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to raise 110 million to go buy these things, I'd say, well, how much have you raised? And they say, well, none yet. You'd be my first investor. And I'd be like, well, then how do you know that you can do it? Well, because everybody else is doing it. I know, but like, I'd be like, nah, I don't know.
Right. But I don't look at it as, even though that's the goal, I don't look at it as raising 110 million. I look at it as the first tranche, 10 million.
Yeah, but let's say I gave you 10 million.
Right. Now I'm on to the second tranche.
When are you going to go buy the houses?
Starting straight away.
Then how are you on to the second tranche? Don't you have to have focus?
Well, yeah, but that's where the team comes into it, right?
Are these houses everywhere?
Yeah, they are everywhere.
But who's negotiating and who's looking at them and who's expecting them? Like, to me, I'd be worried mainly because, like, dude, if you took $10 million worth of somebody's dough, and I assume that's not one person going to give it to you.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, guys, let's roll. Here's 10 mil, which I think would be a miraculous feat to begin with. Like, when you raise your first 10 mil, send me a snapshot of it in your bank. And I'm going to be like, damn, dude, that son of a bitch, he made it sound so easy. And it was, but like, I sat back a little skeptical going, dude, what makes you think people are going to invest with you?
Because they're already investing.
Yeah, but not with you.
Right. They're investing in, most of our target avatars are investing in the stock market right now that's crashing, and they're losing their money.
Well, that's true too.
And so why would you not want to put your money into a safer vehicle that is going to stay stable until the essentially government crashes, which we're all screwed if that happens?
Well, again, theoretically, I totally get what you're saying. Theoretically. Right. But normally I'm investing in a group of people that have demonstrated performance.
Right.
You haven't done that.
Right. But my team has.
So the team so you're basically going to rally the funds, and the team is going to go out there and deploy the funds. Exactly.
That's where the acquisition manager comes in. And then it also goes back to my coach and the market expert, Tom, and essentially riding what he's already done. He's already got almost 1,000 doors.
So you're basically going to just raise money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the goal.
Dude, number one, I'm rooting for you only because this will be an epic podcast in 2 years when you actually did it.
Right.
Because it sounds so unrealistic. Like, dude, this guy came along. He recognized that because again, Section 8 is a good investment.
Right.
You know, you can't, I don't want to endorse anything because I don't know what my liabilities are, but I've heard Section 8 is killer investment. But, you know, it's only because the government pays the bills, but you still got to know the houses to buy. You still got to have the good property management. You still got to know, you know, how to inspect them and all the pitfalls that are involved. And you don't know any of it or little of it because you've been studying it. But really what you're saying is the people I've got in this group have done it 1,000,000 times.
Right. And that's called your alpha. Yeah.
So if I go to the investment page, it's going to explain all this.
Well, that's on the PPM. Yeah. So once somebody,
I'm going to go look at it. Maybe I'll be your first like 100 G's.
There you go.
What's the minimum?
50 G's.
50.
50. Yep. And that's, and the reason that is because every type of fund that you have, like I said, we're a 506c, and so you can only have up to 1,999 investors. And so if you back that out, that's where that comes from. So it's all off of numbers and how those are structured.
So,
but I want to touch on something that you said as well, right? Like, you know how many people told me I was crazy when I told them I was going to start flying helicopters? Everybody laughed at me, and I did it for over a decade. But they're like, some street kid that did meth, that's never going to happen. And I proved them all wrong, and I'm going to do it with this too.
Well, helicopters is a little bit different, but that is also
way harder than this. Way harder, dude.
It's just study.
So is this. It isn't any different. Everything in life is just study.
Dude,
and there's a lot more to flying.
That's right, folks. Did you hear what he said? He said everything in life's just study, and that is true too.
That's all it is.
And I'm not trying to say you're never going to do it.
Right.
I think you're going to, just from talking to you for the past couple hours, even before this. I think you're going to be able to do it. It just blows my mind though, how hard it sounds and how hard, because my mind's not even wrapping around it. But I'll bet you, if I were a betting man, you're going to pull it off. In fact, I'll bet you there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are going to freaking hit you up and probably be some of your first investors.
Possibly. Yeah.
You know, and again, I'm going to go look at the PPM myself, and I'm going to, you know, I can afford to lose 50 grand, right. But if it's in Section 8 and you've got the experience, then it's not a potential loss. It's a potential return and probable return. Because right. Section 8, dude, you're if you buy right and you know how to manage it and you vet the tenants, you have a whole list of tenants. The U.S. government is waiting for these homes to come online.
Right, thousands. And that's actually the reason that we started in St. Louis. And I don't want to give up my spot, but as we were talking about earlier, St. Louis in 2020 alone had an influx of 6,000 Section 8 applicants. They had so many applicants they had to shut the list off and start a waiting list for the list. And they're still trying to get through the 2020 list. So there is no shortage of people to lease those houses up to. You got
to buy them, get them up to spec. Is there a certain spec?
You've bought houses.
Yeah, right? But is there a certain spec you have to have them, or very, very low standards?
It's very low standard, but it's mainly cleanliness, right? And so all HUD cares about is the house clean? Is it livable? There can't be any protrusions like holes in the siding, none of that stuff. You have to fill it all with whatever.
Or bugs and shit.
But so bugs can't get in. Exactly. They're just trying to create a sanitary place for their tenants, and that's it. But buying a Section 8 house isn't any different to buying your personal house. And it's rinse and repeat. Like, have it inspected. If it doesn't pass the inspection, move on. If it passes the inspection, lease it up and let's go.
Yeah, and basically that's how easy it is. You got to just go in there and make sure it freaking passes sanitary. You get things fixed, dialed in, and 9 times out of 10, you can buy them almost ready to rent.
And that's part of our criteria is we're buying rent-ready houses. We're not burning them. We're not fixing and flipping them and all that type of stuff. We'll buy from fix and flippers, but I'm not going in and remodeling something and throwing a tenant in there. I'm buying turnkey rent-ready houses.
So what if there's people listening that are in the business that want to sell houses? Should they hit you up?
We're looking for those as well. There's a lot of portfolios out there for sale. Definitely hit me up. Yeah.
So they'll reach out and just be like, hey, I got a couple houses.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're already leased up with good Section 8 tenants, those are ones we want anyway. As long as
why would they sell them then?
There's a lot of tired landlords out there, people that just don't want to do it anymore. For whatever reason, they've been doing it for a long time. Maybe some of those people bought them with terrible interest rates. Like I know one person that he's got some rentals down in Texas. One's got an almost 11% interest rate on it. It's killing him because you just bought it at the wrong time, which goes back to our model of buying them all with cash with no debt service.
I just wish you would manage the properties, other people's properties too.
No,
because like I'm weird, which is probably why I don't have a huge real estate portfolio like I should have already. Because I'm weird. Like Grant Cardone was trying to get me to do it with him. And I'm like, but I don't want to just give you my money. I want to learn what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I don't want to give you my money and then just sit there and wait for mine. Cause now I never know how to do it. I feel like doing it, but then I don't have the time. And it's like, come on, dude, you got to pick one. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, dude, how come I can't just go buy, if they're 70,000 to 100,000 each, let's say I go buy 5, 100% mine. And then I just pay you, 10% of the rent roll to manage them.
Right. A lot of people do that.
And now they're mine though.
Mm-hmm.
And now I get all the upside Because I would imagine, the way those funds work, you're not giving up all the profit, which means when you're in a passive environment, let's say you pay me 13%. Well, you probably made
20 at the end. So we have the management fee. And then after the 8% pref, which all the investors get, everything after the investors is paid back, we get 20% of. So they're still getting an 80% upside on that until they're paid back all their equity.
How long will that take?
That is going to be dependent upon how fast we actually buy all the doors, but it's structured between 24 and 36 months of a hold time before they're paid back.
And who's paying them back? The next group of investors?
No, the fund, the cash flow, and then the refi, because we're buying them all debt free.
Oh yeah.
And then we're going to refi them, but that whole 24 months.
That's what you're going to refi them.
Exactly. But that whole 24 months that we're stacking all that cash flow, 8% a year goes back to the investors, but all the rest of it's just getting banked. So there's already going to be a chunk of change there to pay them back when that comes.
Yeah, but obviously not enough to pay them all back.
That's why the refi comes in.
Yeah.
And so
I'm just looking for the holes. Like,
no, I get it.
How you paying me back if all you got's the cash flow? Because you can't pay me back in 3 years.
Right. It's just the cash. The cash flow is going to create a piggy bank that's going to then couple with the refi, which is going to pay the investors back. And that's only the first refi because we're going to be deploying this cash for over 5 years. And so there'll be a second refi at roughly the 48-month mark.
Without going to look at the PPM, what is the return rate again? You're saying roughly 13%?
Target's 13%, but that's going to fluctuate a little bit.
What's Tom's history?
Tom's history as far as what?
ROI.
His portfolio is all private, so I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, I mean, they got to base it on something.
I know his monthly cash flow is 1.1 million from it. So, I don't know what his ROI is on his personal portfolio. It's all private.
Well, then how will I know what he's just guessing me?
No. The financial analyst is the one that projects that return as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And so that's not coupled to what Tom's portfolio is. That's just the edge or the alpha. That's the experience. So that was me deciding who's the best person that I could find a partner with in order to make this work type thing.
Because if it doesn't work, dude, you're screwed, aren't you?
Well, I'm going to look like an idiot. Yeah.
Well, you might be screwed too. Some people might be calling you going, "Where's my money, bro?"
Right.
You'll say, "Tom left with it."
No, Tom ain't leaving with nothing. He's just the expert on that. So,
I'm looking for Tom with you.
So no, they're never going to be screwed because they're always going to have the asset to fall back on, right? So worst case scenario, it takes them longer to get paid back, if that makes sense.
It does.
So you're never going to lose your money because you're going to have the assets that's protecting your money. But if economic collapse or whatever else, some worst case scenario like that, rates go up and it's not worth refinancing at the 24, 36 month mark. And there are some doomsday stuff like that that's all projected and put in there. And basically a PPM is there to tell you, hey, listen, by being an accredited investor, you understand you could lose every penny of this.
Yeah, well, I'm accredited, which is why I understand what I'm asking, but I'm also not as versed in real estate transactions like I should be.
Right.
Because which
again is the reason for the resources tab on the website. Neither was I, man. And I didn't realize the simplicity of it. And I know that sounds like cliche, right? But at the end of the day, it's just a repetitive process. Once you understand the process, it's just rinse and repeat like anything else.
Well, it sounds like that, but I've never done it. So I'm just like a little bit apprehensive to go all in and say, yeah, man, it's a no brainer, dude. You go buy a $70,000 house, list it with the government starts sending you a check, go buy another one, then go buy another one. Then that's it. You're rich.
Right. But there's also, and it's not necessarily that, there's people that are out there that own 20 Section 8 rentals that go bankrupt because they don't have somebody that's already done it that has a track record of doing it. They don't set up property management the proper way. They go hire that out. They pay the 10%, which takes a chunk of their cash flow. And so there's a criteria.
Or they pay too much.
Or they get an Android user.
or they get an Android user,
yeah,
or they pay too much.
Yeah, or they pay too much. They finance it too high of a loan. And so those are all the little things, like I said, that's the thought process I went through with Fund Launch, right? Because these coaches, these guys are real estate specific, managing hundreds of millions of dollars. And through that process, they make you think about that. They ask you those questions. Like they'll put me in the hot seat just like you are right now, like on a Zoom full of tons of other fund managers, and just chop you up because it's something that you have to think about.
So this fund launch is launching a bunch of fund managers that have never managed any funds.
None of them, hardly any of them have ever managed a fund. And that's something that
I'd love to see their success rate.
It's 1,200 fund managers already now.
Yeah, but I mean, I can call myself a fund manager as soon as I set one up.
But they don't let you.
The question is how many are successful and making a good return.
A better question is how many have failed? Because as far as I know, I don't think there's any. Not that I've heard.
How long has it been around? 8 months?
No. You know Bridger, he's been around for a few years.
I don't know Bridger.
Oh,
I know of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him around the circuit and I've heard him, and everyone always says, he's a legit dude.
Yeah, it's
and
legit.
He definitely teaches you how to raise money.
Right.
But it just sounds so freaking easy. It can't be this easy.
It's not easy. It's really not.
I've had multiple people say, Brad, we could leverage your brand to raise capital.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I'm never going to do that until I understand it fully. Why?
You want to be a backup capital raiser?
No, it's because I'm not putting my name on shit that I don't know.
Right.
Like right now, you could be like, Brad, I'll give you money for every time someone from the bomb squad invests, and I'm here selling it,
That's
and
illegal.
I don't know shit.
Yeah.
Is it illegal?
Yeah, you can't solicit funds like that. Absolutely.
What do you mean? Grant Cardone does it all the time.
Those are in-house people.
What do you mean in-house?
Those are his in-house capital raisers, right?
No, it isn't. It's him telling the public, give me your money, and I'm going to go buy apartments with it.
Yeah, that's Grant saying that, but I can't go to you and say, Brad, hey, every person you bring me money with, I'll pay you a kickback for that. That's, no, that's illegal. You can't do that.
You sure?
Yeah.
I wonder why. Because that's just me getting a commission on people I drive you.
Right, but you have to be hired at a fee. And so I could hire you and say, hey, Brad, I'll give you 300 grand to go out and raise money for me, but all you will get is that 300 grand. You don't get a percentage or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it anyway, unless I knew, which is my point, like I knew the business. Why? Because, dude, I'm putting my name on it.
Right.
So that way, like if I ever start preaching about send me your money, I've got a fund, it's time to send it. Why? Because, dude, I'm telling you straight up, because I know exactly what's going to happen, at least, based on my beliefs and projections, right. which again is dangerous enough.
It is.
And I still don't feel comfortable doing it. I've done it. I haven't done it, but I mean, I've made investments, right? And they were paying me, and I'm like, man, this is gravy. And I almost started calling people that I know to put in their money because they got way more than I do. And I'm like, look what I'm making, man. You could be making even way more, but I don't know. And sure enough, dude, I lost 700 grand in one. It was only a matter of time. And that son of a bitch was a scam and it fell through. And I'm like, shit, how come I always pick the shitty ones? It's because I didn't know what's going on.
Right.
I just heard the delusional sounds good bullshit.
Right.
And it all sounds good.
And you can package up a pig pretty good if you want to.
And it all sounds good. And everybody's like, damn, dude, I'm going to get in that. And then next thing you know, damn, dude, why'd you get in that?
Right. Should have done that.
Yeah. So fortunately, I don't promote, I don't advise, and I don't solicit. I expose people to opportunity. Like, you're an opportunity. People can listen to this opportunity and say, hey, I want in on this deal. But what I recommend people do is do their own homework.
Oh, absolutely.
Do their own due diligence. Go look at the PPM. That's what I would advise. Only fools don't listen to opportunity. And then judge for yourself, only because, again, if anybody put their money in and made $1 million, you don't owe me. And if you lose $1 million, I don't owe you. So, just for disclaimer purposes. But like I said earlier, I have a feeling that you're going to do it just because.
I'm going to do it. I'm already doing it.
But you're going to be a huge testimonial for Fund Launch.
Right.
Do they already have a bunch that have raised considerable amount of money?
Yeah. There's a few people out there that have raised hundreds of millions.
I know, but I'm going to go look at Fund Launch too, just to see.
Go hit my referral link.
Will they teach me not just how to raise funds, because I already get how to do it. The question is the legally, liability, all of the ways to where, like, Brad, pay attention, and here's all the things that could go wrong. Because if I knew all the rules and I can assess them for myself, well, then I'm fairly intelligent that I think I could make a good judgment. My problem is I don't know the rules, bro. Right. I don't know what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. Like when you said this is the best investment ever, I'm like, I always thought you couldn't make those claims.
Right. No, you can.
Matter of fact, fund managers might be listening to this. The Fund Launch guys listen to this and go, Steve, you can't say what you were saying, bro. Tell him not to air that.
No, because there's people out there in hospitality funds that think their fund's the best thing ever, right? There's people out there in crypto funds that think their fund is the best thing ever, and that's why they do it. Yet there's venture capitalists and private equity funds out there. They think that theirs is the best, and that's why they do it, because that's what they studied and that's what they learned.
I know, but because there's investors involved,
right?
Whether they're accredited or not, you do have to be careful what you claim.
Right. You do have to be careful what you claim.
And if you claim incorrectly or have any issues, you could be seriously in trouble.
Well,
like the guest, well, I mean, again, even if you didn't know.
Well, that's where the accredited investor thing comes in. Say worst case.
See, like me and you would think, yeah, why? I'm safe because of that. When in reality, I'm telling you, is better double check. I'm going to double check only before I did anything like this, raise funds, because I just interviewed Trevor Milton right before you.
Right.
Dude, he raised $34 billion. He was convicted.
Right.
4 years later for securities fraud because he was talking about a business plan as if it were present time. So he got put in prison, which he didn't because Trump just pardoned him. But he was basically convicted and then went to appeal. So he didn't go to prison. Otherwise he would have went to prison, but because he was convicted. Boom, convicted, sentenced, guilty, done, felon for the rest of his life, from being a billionaire to now a prisoner. And at the end of the day, it was because he was talking about the business plan as if it was present tense. And they said, you can't say that. And literally, he's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, it's everything I said was true and everything I said is real. And they said, no. You can't say it like that. Boom, busted his ass. And thankfully, Trump freaking pardoned his ass because Trump knows that these freaking people sometimes are nasty people. The government, especially the previous government, was reportedly weaponizing the Department of Justice.
Absolutely.
And dude, they're looking for people that are making misrepresentations and claiming things wrong.
Right.
Even if they're not guilty and they're not shady, they're just naive. And when it comes to these things, are a little more naive than I want to be. I want to be sure. I want to be certain. I want to have a team of legal people to explain it to me to where when I start raising funds, I know exactly what the fuck is going on. Right. Otherwise, I'm not raising funds. Why? Because, dude, I'm not going to jail. I'm not gonna get in any trouble. If I raise funds, trust me, you can invest. Keep your eyes peeled because one of these days I may. I'm gonna go check out Fund Launch. They might get me excited.
Absolutely.
By next week, I'll be raising my first fund.
It's going to take a little bit longer than that.
How long does it take to learn that program?
Depends on how much time you have put towards it.
Do they teach you legal and compliance and all that shit?
Yeah, you go through all of it. And then at the very end, and so our PPM isn't solidified yet, right? Because that's the very last step, is having the lawyer solidify everything through Fund Launch. But that makes me wonder about Mills. Like, what was he claiming?
Who's Mills?
Didn't you say that was your last podcast guy?
Milton.
Milton, excuse me. What was he claiming that they came back and got him on?
He was claiming that he had hydrogen-powered trucks.
Oh, so Big Auto got him.
Somebody got him. And from what he says, the short sellers got him because he was publicly traded The company was valued at $34 billion, and there's people running around hoping you're going to fail and betting you're going to fail. Those are the short sellers.
Right.
Well, the short sellers supposedly, and again, I'm not making the claim, I'm saying this is what the story says. The short sellers partner up with the cronies in the DOJ or the government of some way, or, bad judges. I don't know, but look at the story, but they're partnered up with somebody, and they started, making claims like, hey, this guy's fraudulent. He doesn't really have trucks. And then he said, we've got trucks that do this. Well, if you say you got trucks that do this and they don't currently do that, so that sounds like fraud.
He was raising funds for something that wasn't actually solidified yet, essentially.
Well,
or he hadn't created it. It was essentially a concept that he was raising funds for, but saying, hey, we already have this.
Well, again, according to him, he did have it.
Right.
And they wouldn't admit it into the courts.
Interesting.
Like they wouldn't let him look at the truck. He's like, what are you talking about? If I'm lying, let the truck be brought into evidence. Nope. Truck's not allowed in. Disregard anything that you see about the truck being real. Now, again, sounds like no way, but dude, this is the thing people don't understand.
Me, honestly,
exactly.
Right.
It doesn't surprise me either, because I've witnessed crazier shit.
Right.
And that's why it's like, dude, I just stay away from it.
Right.
I just stay away from it until I know more.
Well,
so
maybe we shouldn't air this podcast then, Brad.
Why not? This is you. I'm not in any trouble.
I'm just kidding.
But no, listen, here's what I will do though. Go let Bridger listen to the episode before we air it. And if anybody's hearing this episode, that means that it was released and it was passed and it was scrutinized and nothing was misrepresented.
Right. Right. There you go. And the claims are the claims. Like, for me, Section 8 is the cat's meow when it comes to real estate investing, because of the security of it and the guaranteed cash flow until the government collapses. And COVID is what taught me that, essentially, right?
Well, and that, dude, from what I hear, is a fact. Like,
right.
Dude, Section 8 is a good investment because government backs it and it's not that big of a deal, and you can find them, and there's a line of people waiting to get in, and it's a very good cash on cash return.
Right. And our target return, like I said, is 13%. And that's going to vary depending on deals, and just what zip codes it is. And so, yeah, so I'm not making any wild claims for sure.
Are you bullish on moving forward? Like, in other words, you guys are already raising funds, from this appearance to everyday activity. You're out actively.
Not actively raising funds for this one yet, because like I said, the PPM's not done, and so until that gets done,
when will it get done?
When legal gets it done.
But what if this drops first?
That's all right. They can still go to my website and fill out the form. If anybody's interested in just learning more about Section 8 or anything like that, just go to my website, KVR Investors, fill out the information form, just kind of tell us who you are, where you're at, and why you might potentially be interested in learning more, and then we could take it from there. So,
other than going to do that, how can the Bomb Squad help you?
They can hit me up on Instagram, all that, ask me any questions they might have there. And if anybody has a portfolio that they want to sell, I'm already partnering with private money out there to buy houses and things that way.
You can do that right now.
Yeah. So that's something I'm actively doing now. So if anybody has a portfolio out there that they're interested in selling, would be interested in taking a look at it. If anybody wants to just partner up and start buying houses together, like you were talking about, start buying 10 houses and split it 50-50 and I manage them type thing, without being in a fund, that's something that I'm interested in as well.
I might do that.
Yeah. A lot of people do it, man. And it's actually,
I know Section 8's a good investment. I know this. I just don't know enough about it to like frickin' make any
the
speculations.
Fund sounds hard, but it's really not. And I thought that's something though I thought it was out of reach too, right? Like, but through the fund launch program, you realize that it's just knowledge. You're just acquiring knowledge and then you're putting it into action. And it's no different than anything else.
And last but not least, if you want to launch your own fund, go to
kvrinvestors.com, hit up the resources tab for resources for entrepreneurs, go to fund launch, fill out the referral form, and somebody will give you a call.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And guys, listen, Think about things.
Think about things.
Because you're going to have to invest to get wealthy. I know that.
Right.
I always tell people you got to get in the position to receive commission. And then people listen to me.
Right.
They go get in the position to receive commission. They call me, oh, you changed my life. I'm like, cool, man. What'd you end up doing? Oh, we're doing this. We're doing that. I went from making this. I went from that. I'm like, good. Now what are you doing? He's like, I got a nice house. I got a nice car. I got the girl. Everything's going smooth. Still no money.
Right.
They just literally raise their lifestyle. Dude, you got to invest to get wealthy.
Agreed.
So either learn to invest, learn to invest other people's money, or do something. Because if you're just sitting around making money, that can end.
Right. And it's going to end eventually.
It will.
It's only a matter of time.
Even if you age out.
Right.
Folks, pay attention. Invest your money wisely and keep it real.